Hello everyone, it's Ashwin Rao. Today's video review is one that I've been meaning to share with you since I started this channel. I also offer you the perspective of someone who shot Leica cameras for the past 2 decades on a nearly daily basis, and as someone who shot nearly every M mount lens, including all of Leica's lenses, and I wanted to present you with my thoughts on this particular lens based on that perspective. So with no further ado, here are my thoughts on the Voigtländer 50mm f2 APO Lanthar spherical lens in Leica M mount. So the Voigtländer 50mm f2 APO Lanthar lens was released in 2020 and has become broadly available over the course of its production. It was meant as a lower-cost apochromatic alternative at the f2 aperture to Leica's much more expensive 50mm f2 APO Summicron lens, which costs upwards of $8,000 to $10,000. The APO Lanthar lens does have a few compromises. It's a relatively large f2 50mm lens on the Leica M system. That being said, it's still not a large lens. But compared to the 50mm APO Summicron and other Summicrons that came before it, it's a larger lens than those lenses and one of the largest f2 lenses in the M mount system available today. While it's a larger lens, it is beautifully constructed. It features a knurled focusing ring, as well as a focusing throw of 90 degrees, which I find to be incredibly useful for both accurate and fast focusing. It also features an aperture range of f2 all the way to f16 and aperture adjustments in half-stop increments. The lens head has to be purchased separately, but mounts securely and stays on the body, and is a really nice addition both aesthetically and functionally for this lens. So I really like the design and aesthetics of this lens with its white and red numbering on the zone focusing markings here. You can see that the aperture markings are all in white, and the one thing that stands out is the apochromatic designation that Voigtländer uses. The 3 red, green, and blue colors make it a rather distinct look that you either love or maybe not love. This lens features 12 aperture blades and is designed to provide a perfectly circular aperture at f5.6, which is where we are now, as well as f2.0 and f2. So those are 3 common apertures that all of us Leica shooters like to use, f2, 2.8, and 5.6. It also happens to be the wheelhouse where this lens performs best based off of its MTF charts. So who is this lens meant for? Well, I would say that a 50mm f2 lens should be in nearly every Leica M system shooter's camera bag. Second, this is a flat field lens, meaning that there's very little distortion at all at both close focus and all the way to infinity, which means that this is a perfect lens for landscape work. It's incredibly sharp wide open and through its aperture range, but because it has perfectly circular aperture at f5.6, f2.8, and f2.0, this can also be a beautiful portrait lens with beautiful specular highlights at those apertures. It's very, very sharp. It has 3-dimensional pop, and its apochromatic color correction also lends itself to great portraiture work. The lens features a floating element design with 10 elements organized in 8 different lens grouping, including 2 aspherical elements and 4 aspherical surfaces. The apochromatic design removes on-axis chromatic aberration, which lends itself to reduce chromatic aberration or those unusual colored purple fringes that you might see in very high contrast color or lighting settings. So this lens is capable of avoiding that scenario altogether. Apochromatic correction lends itself to more accurate color reproduction for things such as skin tones or commercial work where color accuracy is really important. As I mentioned, this knurled focus ring is particularly suited for a rapid and accurate focusing and easy handling. And the lens also focuses to 0.7 meters close focusing, The lens weighs 288 grams, which makes it a reasonably light lens, but not necessarily one that will disappear in your camera bag. As a lens capable of high quality imaging, is this a lens that is built solely for its technical merits as a MTF champion that can beat every other lens other than maybe the Leica APO comparator? Well, no, this is a beautiful lens meant to be used in all circumstances. I find that the portraits that I've taken with this lens have a rich look to them, a beautiful fall off, and a great foreground to background separation. In street photography, this is a lens that's been a joy to use because of its 90-degree focus throw, its flat focusing plane, and its incredible sharpness across its aperture range make it an ideal partner for landscape work. So this is a lens that begs to be used. Its price to performance ratio is incredibly high. I don't think you're going to beat it in terms of its performance, other than using a lens such as the Leica APO lens, which costs 8 times as much. As I've gotten further along in life, and as I've continued to shoot with Leica lenses and third-party lenses over the years, I've come to the recognition that for me, the price to performance ratio matters. It's hard for me to justify paying $8,000 or $9,000 for a lens that performs just a smidge higher. But for those of you who have an unlimited budget and want the optimum performance, Leica is still the ticket. Keep in mind though that Voigtländer is really not that far behind, and I would argue that this lens outperforms almost any SLR lens that I've ever used in terms of its properties and imaging. So the Voigtländer 50mm f2 APO lens is a joy to use. It is truly a pleasurable lens in hand. It's a pleasure to come back home and see the images that come from the lens. It's a joy to handle, and ultimately I think it's a lens that you should find its way into your bag. If you value high quality optics and you want a lens that's going to perform admirably on the Leica M system, look no further than the Voigtländer 50mm f2 APO Lanthar spherical lens. This is one of the best 50mm lenses ever made. It's a joy to use, it's well thought out, and ultimately the results will tell the tale of the tape. If you decide to buy this lens, you might want to reach out to Stephen Gandy from CameraQuest, who's the authorized importer and dealer for Voigtländer lenses across the United States. So, with that in mind, I'm going to wrap up this review and wish you well. I hope that you're out there shooting right now on a beautiful day, or a rainy day for that matter, and maybe take that Voigtländer 50mm f2 APO Lanthar lens with you. It will not disappoint. Have a good one. I'll see you at the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.